Hey there, vinyl community. Um, so I thought I'd do a little end of the year. Seemed appropriate to do a little end of the year wrap up. I tried to, think of like a coherent theme. Um, and I suppose this year I feel like my musical tastes have been all over the map, and kind of hard to come up with a really coherent theme. So what I thought I'd do is just uh, pull out some records either that I found this year or some records that I rediscovered this year, even within my own collection. Just I've had the last 7 or 8 days off of work and finally having time to kind of like dig into music again and do all that. It's really been a fun kind of end of the year opportunity. So thought I'd kind of head in that direction. It just so happens that there's a lot of jazz, just by chance, but different kinds of jazz, like all over the place, with no specific orientation or anything. I did just get this. Came in the mail yesterday. This is So Sneer, uh, The Well. This is kind of how do you put it? Fusion jazz, but with like the jazz has a very kind of free orientation to it, and also with a lot of electronics. It's good. It's really really good, and it's a little different from they had an album before this, which was also very good. This is a little bit more on the I hate this term mellow, but it has a little bit more of an ambience to the sound on this record, and a great record. And yeah, I've had it. I've listened to it twice so far, and I know it's a keeper, man. This is one that's definitely staying in my collection. Really good stuff. First heard this, by the way, I heard this on Stunty's Friday night live stream. He played a little bit of one of them, and I just gravitated right to it. So, so yeah, there's that. This is a purchase from earlier this year. Another jazz album, something I've wanted for a long time, and went ahead and made the plunge. And yeah, this is if you're not familiar with this is jazz, but the lead instrument's violin, and not something that you normally expect in a jazz record. But let's see if I it's certainly has a spiritual bend to it, and but real nice explorations and sound, and has a really great vibe about it. And yeah, really glad I was able to kind of get this in my collection this year. Cool record. And here's another. This was just kind of a pickup. I saw this on the wall of kind of my favorite local. Walked in there one day, and here's this, still in the shrink. Yeah. So I immediately pulled it off the wall, and I had heard this record before, but this is some pretty, if you're gonna delve into this, be ready for some pretty, experimental and free explorations, but good, really really good, and highly recommended. And that's not what I paid for it. It actually was not a very expensive record at all. I was just glad to find it in such beautiful shape. And so good. If you're not familiar with this and you like, if you like your jazz a little bit more on the free end of things, yeah, this is great. You'll like it a lot. A couple. So going back to like COVID period, and there was a lot of records that I got during those years, that we were all trapped inside the house and everything. And two records I played quite a bit. One I think people will probably know. This is a, you know, Black Focus. This is a pretty popular record. This is that whole like jazz resurgence that came out of like London and New York, and you know, it seemed like this was kind of the beginning of the you know, jazz wave that we're still kind of in the middle of. But going back and reinvestigate, these are, you know, funky. There was a follow-up album, but just by Williams. He was the only one on this record, The Return. Very similar in orientation. This one's probably the better record. Very funky. Very. I wish there were a little bit more. I'd say one criticism of them might be that I wish they were a little more experimental and took some more risks. But they're nice records to put on if you have company over, or if you just want to have a nice evening at home with somebody and you want to relax and spend some time on the couch and stuff. These are both great records for that. And it's kind of rediscovering them, and it's kind of nice to pull something out of your collection that I really haven't listened to in a while, and find that I still really liked it. Also from that same period, it's another record that came out. This is The Comet Is Coming. This got a lot of press at the time. A lot of great sleeve, by the way. And it's got that cool, impulse. It's on the label too. This is pretty colorful jazz with a free orientation to it. But it also has, I think this would also be appealing to like rock, some rock fans who wanted to kind of like explore jazz a little bit. This would be a pretty good album to begin that voyage with, and a record that I think has held up pretty well. Is it as great as like the greats, Alice Coltrane, and no, but it does have a nice feel to it, and I think the playing still holds up really well, and that sleeve is pretty indicative of the sound. I think this is pretty bright, colorful, optimistic, but also adventurous and free and spiritual a little bit. Good stuff. So there's those. Oh, and then another record, talk about rediscovering a record that I haven't listened to in like a long time. So this is a band that became very, very popular in the 90s. Had a big, pretty successful album with, it's Wilco. And so this is the Wilco record that they made right after their kind of big success. And on this record, Jim O'Rourke, who had produced Yankee Foxtrot Hotel, he's pretty much almost like a member at this point on this record. And this is by far and away Wilco's most experimental, and there's a lot of electronic influences in here, a lot of krautrock influences in here, and this is about as adventurous as Wilco would ever get, and I don't think they really, after this record, I lost interest, and I have not watched their career, and I've had people tell me there's been good records that have come, and I have no doubt that there are, but to me this was the pinnacle of kind of where they were heading, and I think they got away from that experimental aspects of their music. Jim O'Rourke moved on, but when they were doing this collaboration together, and they made some other records together too, they were making some really interesting, modern music that, is definitely worth going back and hearing. This record holds up really, really well. I still really like it. So there's Wilco. record I discovered earlier. I think this album is from 2020 or 2000. No, it's 2022. So, Theo Parrish. This is Detroit techno. For all intents and purposes, techno house music. This is a really good record. And I love that shot of Detroit on the cover of it, and it's very kind of indicative of that, like, that the vibe of the sun coming up and traveling through the city, and creates a really cool, a really great vibe to it. Dance Alone, which takes up all of the one half of the second record, is it's worth the price of admission. It's just got a great, vibe and beat to it. And if you haven't heard it, or you haven't investigated anything by Theo Parrish, it's a pretty good record. I think it's still I know it's on Discogs, and you could get it for probably a really, really low price. And definitely worth investigating if you're curious about, kind of what some of the modern aspects of Detroit techno and what's going on in that scene. This is a good example. What else do I have? So that's kind of my jazz, and there was one kind of been pulling this record out, and you'll all know this one. This is Sly and the Family Stone. This is Sly. I think this is after the hits kind of stopped coming. There was a hit on this. I think A Family Affair was a hit, but this definitely has a different vibe to it, and there's a lot of texture and a lot of experimentation going on in the studio, and a lot of drug use going on in the studio. And the result was, I think, just one really interesting album, kind of an indictment. That flag on the front cover, I don't think is really so much meant to be patriotic as to be a bit of an indictment on the country that they were, that Sly and they were coming from, and some of the things that they saw, going on, economic things, cultural things, and some of the injustices happening. But a great record, and one that still holds up, man. It's still really good. And here's another. This album goes all the way back to college when I found this. It's a compilation from Mute and Some Bizarre, and a bunch of different bands on here. Cabaret Voltaire, a lot of label mates and stuff like that. Most of the tracks on this are exclusive to this compilation. So even if you've got, a lot of music by those various bands, this is a really great listen, and it holds up all the way through. Just the dynamite. You talk about the 80s and techno pop and what was going on and all that. And this is kind of a chance to hear some of the, the undercurrent of what was happening in 80s music in the mid part of the decade. Fantastic record, cool sleeve, and I hadn't listened to this in a while. It was fun to pull it out. So there's that. Next, I have a couple gifts, and then a couple of with the holiday season passing, everyone's talking about Christmas music. I'm not so much into the Christmas music, but this was one that I discovered a couple years ago. Underground Garage, Christmas A Go-Go. This gathers together a bunch of holiday-orientated tracks that you probably wouldn't normally get a chance to hear. It's got Bob Seger and the Last Herd doing Sock It To Me Santa, the Ramones, just a bunch of different, all kind of garage-orientated, the Kinks classic, Father Christmas, and fun. Oh, and the opening track is Keith Richards doing Run Run Rudolph. So, fun little holiday listen. I don't know how many people are familiar with this. I wish they'd do a vinyl release of this. Be nice. Cool little album. And then the other album, another CD that I kind of rediscovered I didn't really rediscover it. I've always thought a lot of this record. This is Brian Eno, and this Brian Eno album called Thursday Afternoon. And the music on this is was created specifically for an art exhibit that consisted of some video paintings that were shown in the museum, and then this was the music that went along to it. But this is really beautiful. If ever there was music that captured the feeling of a starry evening, really interesting and very random, a lot of silence and space. This is one of those recordings that you think maybe is best heard on a CD. And if you haven't heard this, I think this gets overlooked by even by people who like Eno. This is a really good record and very different. It's one piece of music. It plays all the way through. It's about 60 minutes long. And if you allow it to do its work, it's really captivating and really quite beautiful. So there's that. And a couple of quick, so I got a nice book. This was my, this gathers together, it purports to gather together every single Morricone soundtrack and album and all the photos of each one, where they had photos of each one, and a little snippet about each record. And it's a beautiful book. And if you like Eno, or if you like Morricone, this is a really, if there was any one person, if I had the means and I could collect Morricone, and love to be able to try to, find a way of getting a hold of all those. Really interesting little book, and you might think about, I don't know what its availability is, and then the other one was, this kind of comes from my my garage rock love, and so in the late 1970s, when the Rolling Stones were on hiatus, Keith Richards and Ron Wood did a tour as the New Barbarians. And this book kind of chronicles that there never was an album or even a live album officially. There were bootlegs and stuff, although there is a CD in the back of the book which gives you some of the music. The music is, it's pretty rough, to be honest with you. But it's a pretty beautiful book that captures, I think, kind of often overlooked period in the Stones' history when really Keith and Ron Wood were really living like outlaws, and this book kind of gives you a little snapshot of that. Really interesting, fun read too, not a tough read. So I think that's about it. I kind of think I made that fairly quick. Just a bunch of random stuff, but stuff that I've been getting into this end of the year, and hope everyone's doing good. I hope everyone has a great new year, and we'll see you later.